Hello everyone, my name's Kristen Peak and I'm a social work major. So that is part of what inspired me to do my final presentation on decolonization and healing through traditional practices. It is a topic that I find very interesting and important when working and just being a part of our community here in Fairbanks and all over Alaska. So we are experiencing the coronavirus disease right now, and for most of us, it is a once in a lifetime thing, something that we have never experienced and could not imagine. But for some people, like those people living in the villages, they heard stories of the Spanish flu and what that did. So we can only imagine the fear that the coronavirus has brought back and reinstated in these people. We are afraid of being locked in our homes, and we want to go out. We may lose, our grandma or our friends. And for the Alaska Native, they are bringing back memories of losing their entire village. So in the 1900s, the Spanish flu killed 60% of the Eskimo and the Athabascans here in Alaska. And this left the villages scared and alone. Their shaman died, their elders died, children were left orphaned. And on top of that, they were afraid because they didn't understand why their medicine was not working, why everyone was dying. They didn't know about bacteria and they didn't know about viruses. So this was just a totally new experience for them, and they didn't understand why their traditions did not work. So this left a very vulnerable population, and the Christian missionaries took full advantage of that. And that means talking about the boarding schools. So we learned in this class, and I've learned in several others, that the boarding schools were just not a good time in our history. And this was a time where the Christian missionaries took the children, and the adults, they thought they were doing the right thing in letting the children go to these boarding schools. So they went to these boarding schools, and during this time they were taught to not talk in their native tongue, not to practice any traditional singing or dancing. They were told to wear clothing a certain way. They were made to cut their hair. All of these things were happening at the boarding schools. And then in the villages, the adults, they were feeling shame of what happened in their village, shame of their children being taken to these boarding schools and them not doing anything about it. And now we are growing silent and guilt. And this is causing intergenerational trauma, and that's the trauma that is passed through generation and can manifest as bad physical and mental health. And the individual traumas of the past become the collective traumas for the future. So when I say that these can start looking bad, what happened was, in this intergenerational trauma, they began to pass down poverty and poor health, shame of their culture, shame of what everything was happening. And this is called, as a collective in the Native culture, soul wounds. But for us in the Western culture, we see it as post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is the disorder of guilt, basically. And what it is we suppress a traumatic event, and it leads to heightened guilt and shame. And the person is haunted by the memories. Most of us know it because of our veterans and what they have gone through in war. And then they come home with that guilt. in the excuse me, Alaska Native, it's basically the same thing, the guilt of what happened during the Spanish flu. Now, what do we do to help change and fix this? And what does healing look like? And that means bringing back culture for the Alaska Native here. So a really important aspect is the talking circle. In the talking circle, for us, we would just see it as like an NA meeting or an AA meeting. But for them, it's a time to meet with family and friends in the village and just be able to talk about experiences and how everybody is feeling. And it's going to build a stronger community, one that is knowledgeable of what is going on in the community, and one that understands the feelings that are surrounded in the community. So it's a very important aspect. We also see healing in traditional dance, hunting, subsistence living, the elders talking to the children and passing down their knowledge. Pride is a very important aspect of healing, and the process of enculturation is the process in which a minority group learns more about their culture, traditions, and norms as a protective mechanism. And what this does is just builds a community buffer, because we are now breaking down these stereotypes, and instead of going with the negatives that we're hearing, we are proud of who we are, and we are living that life of pride. Institutional change is something that also needs to happen. And that means that we're culturally supportive in our education, healthcare, and social services. This is very important, education, because education is the key to breaking the cycles of poverty and bad health, and just knowing what goes along with it. And it just goes back to all of these other things of pride and self-awareness and knowing and talking about it all. Intervention in our youth is extremely important. And here is Byron Nikolai. He is a member of the Yupik Youth. He incorporates modern music with traditional Yupik music to gain the attention of the youth in the community. He goes into the schools and into the villages, and he sings, and he has a YouTube video that's reached thousands of people, and it's super exciting to hear and see. So in conclusion, it's just very important for us to be aware of other cultures and the trauma that has been felt over hundreds of years and passed down over hundreds of years. And to break these cycles, we need to begin to instill traditions and pride back into these communities. And we need to do this on every level. Decolonization happens on the individual, communal, as well as institutional levels. So I encourage everybody to go out and be a part of our community and be a part of the Alaskan culture and embrace it and help begin decolonization. So I want to end with Byron Nikolai and one of his songs.
Yo, Kumla, you ready?
Yeah.
Alright, let's do this. Dawshu. You guys ready?
Yeah!
Dawshu, vinga you biugo. Da ringlach da dot vanrak shot dam ni jugnika. Liti kudu, salud, teaching I do. Vinga dogam chaya shasi kaka. Quankuda money down a yoga just for car. Me gangu da dula gai da tani no nani be chatni gani yawani bawani. Jaya yui to yu ratunga ayaglo yakpanun biskunga nunakor tut magalula losu wayos nam kingidaki dosu asirchi guden ni shouldn't begin machunga magaden kan ruskina kin gaya kin kulugi just the batrin ni da klugi yok heran dauna kansta yok heran nesbe kan Joshua Kan you dit yok yugi Binga tuk of cheat gi ji uji Ikin rito na sin rita Da hinga yupika down at yaku Taka taksu naito at dumajiko Binga tilo wibi jiko Di jiko dam tang baka Da sin rita hui anama Mikangu samni ya tukpagut kuma Kayaga wasibu iluga wuka At yu taku yoko tiskamnak This you do what's again good done
Kilonet chubun kiluau. Kumlat little, rugal. You begin at Quantum Pisse. Leave me alone, I'm translating the word of Pisse. You begin up in the Rokwani, Pitaskin Kima Erik Marchkaka. Kangi, Teluarchiko, Teluarchiko, Iran, Teluarchiko, Kufakchi of Chiko, Ayarioni, Teluarchikamchi, these Chiko, you better watch out for them.
Dudan, ang lanik kleiner gut. Ja, gut, you noch kaputt. Ich kann you tasu da you bigu gut. Ich gaf du ja unaga damago me go nu dang bak tu. Di chi tu, ayu gut you dengan dambilach tu. Cumi ke dam me go nu tau gut. Ich chi ya ram geman is no good.
All right, thank you for viewing my presentation.